to love this scary notification. All right, well, I guess I'll go ahead and get started and welcome everyone to this really incredible and useful webinar as part of the Newark Arts Festival, created in collaboration with Prudential, of course, thank you so much, and the Newark Artist Database and Project for Empty Space. And today we have three incredible speakers with us. For the sake of time, I'm just going to kind of whip through their bios so that, again, they can get started. And if you have questions for the end, there is a Q&A button down at the bottom of your screen, or you can also put them in the chat. And then you will see my bedridden hair later towards the end. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce these three fantastic people, starting with Lisa, our moderator. Lisa Lavelle, financial advisor for Prudential Center. Lisa is an expert in educating clients on the products and services available to help them best to utilize their available funds and achieve important monetary goals. When you work with a financial professional like Lisa, you'll do more than simply find a bridge between our Prudential's products and your financial concerns. You'll also gain access to a professional relationship geared to help you meet the challenges of your financial life. It's a relationship based on integrity, on trust, and on commitment to helping you find financial confidence at every step along the way, no matter your stage in life. Lisa graduated from Prairie View A&M and Rutgers Newark School of Business. Yay. Next, we have Wincy Terry Bryant. Wincy, a native of Newark, New Jersey, belted out her first solo in a small church in Jersey City in 1977. Going from the choir stand to the music and film business, she went on to work with industry giants like Spike Lee, Bill Cosby, Sting, and Tina Turner. Her television credits include Soul Train, The Arsenio Hall Show, and Late Night with David Letterman. Wincy's voice can be heard on Sesame Street, Grover Washington's Junior Grover Life CD, Moni Love's hit single, It's a Shame, and Cosby Show commercials. She later used her entertainment knowledge and experience to start Wincio, an entertainment company that provides music for weddings, banquets, and private parties. In 1988, Wincy decided to combine her love of music, education, and children, and founded a performing arts troupe that educates audiences about serious social justice issues and academic subject matter in schools and churches throughout New York and Jersey. These dynamic live educational shows are presented by professional Wincyco actors, singers, dancers, and musicians. Wincy has produced 2 educational music CDs, 1 cartoon DVD, and a children's book on bullying. In 2003, she founded Nana Babies, a 501c3 nonprofit organization that brings arts programs to underserved populations. More recently, Nana Babies has been using the performing arts to raise awareness about human trafficking. Ms. Terry Bryant has been recognized in several local newspapers and was awarded the KISS FM Phenomenal Woman Award for her innovative work in the school system and community, and Woman of the Year by the National Sorority of Zeta Phi Beta, Inc. for her work in human trafficking. In 2012, she released her self-produced CD entitled Time to Say, followed by her sophomore release in 2015, God's Frequency. And last but not least, our dear PES artist, Shoshana Weinberger. Shoshana Weinberger was born in Kingston, Jamaica, and received her MFA from the Yale School of Art in 2003 and her BFA from the School at the Art Institute of Chicago in 1995. Living and working in Newark, New Jersey since 2006, Weinberger's work references her Caribbean American background, which explores the complexity of heritage, beauty norms, and the psychology of peripheral identity. A recipient of the 2014 Joan Mitchell Foundation Painters and Sculptors Grants, 2015 Joan Mitchell Center Artist in Residence, New Orleans, 2016 Fellowship from the New Jersey State Council of the Arts, 2017/18 Project for Empty Space, Artist in Residence in Newark, 2019 Don Scott Memorial Award presented by the National Gallery of Jamaica, 2020 NAA grant made possible by the Andy Warhol Foundation, and received a 2021 City of Newark Creative Catalyst Fund grant. Recent 2021 exhibitions include Born in Flames, curated by me at the Bronx Museum, Fragments of Perception, a solo show at Wave Hill, also in the Bronx. If you lived here, you'd be home by now at Wassaic Project in Wassaic, New York, and Black Beauty at the Arthur Roger Gallery in New Orleans, Louisiana. This past May, she finished a 2-year appointment as the Macmillan Stewart Endowed Chair in Painting at the Maryland Institute College of Art, MICA. Public collections, include New Jersey State Museum in Trenton, the Newark Museum in Newark, the Sagamore Collection in Miami, Girls Club Collection in Fort Lauderdale, the Margulis Collection also in Miami, the Davidson College Collection, the A.C. Kingston Collection, and recently acquired by the Sheldon Museum of Art in Lincoln, Nebraska. That is probably all very short information about all of you, but thank you for providing that for some context for our viewers. And now, without further ado, Lisa, I'm going to pass it on to you.
Thank you so much, Jasmine, and good afternoon and welcome to everyone, especially my guest panelists, Wincy, Tracy Bryant, and Shoshana Weinberger. It was so great hearing a lot about you guys, but I'd be remiss if I didn't give you the opportunity to briefly introduce yourself. So I'd like to start with Wincy. If you could just tell us just briefly about you, and then we'll hop on over to Shoshana.
All right, so thank you so much, Lisa. I'm so excited to be here. As was read in the bio, and like we're saying, the bio is really just the highlights, and then there are all the things that happen in between your life. But I'm a professional singer. I'm an NJPAC teaching artist. I was raised in Newark. I started my own company. I incorporated in 1988, but every artist knows that even before you put the paperwork together, you are running a business. So I'm really happy to be here and to share, some of the stuff that I've done with the nonprofit, with the for-profit, hiring other artists, and being able to keep it going for all those years. Thank God. So.
Thanks a lot, Wincy. And Shoshana, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself that we didn't hear in the bio.
Oh boy. Well, hello, everybody. Thank you, Newark Arts Festival. Thank you, Lisa, Wincy. It's wonderful to be on this panel. Real pleasure. Yeah, well, most of the things she's already covered now. But, I grew up, was born in Jamaica, and I grew up in Montclair. And my parents were both artists. So I grew up around two people that constantly told me to show me how to navigate this world. I'm an active studio artist, and I've lived in Newark since 2006, and I've had my studio here at Project for Empty Space. When it was evident when I was younger that I wanted to be an artist, my parents really kind of gave me the importance of business skills and tools. And after I received my BFA from School of the Art Institute of Chicago, I held a 6-year position at a corporate art collection, photography collection in Chicago. So I started to learn the tools of business, better business practices. And then after I got my MFA at Yale, I held a 14-year position at Crozier Fine Arts, of which there are 3 locations here in Newark, New Jersey. And so I think both those experiences have allowed me to understand better business practice, art administration, and how to navigate and how to actually be a full-time artist, which is what I am today. So I'm excited to share my journey. Thank you.
I love it. I'm going to do the finger clap too, although I can't snap that well. There you go. This is exciting because, you know, one of the things I enjoy doing in the work I do here at Prudential Financial is just being relatable to people. So let me relate to you in 2 brief seconds. Wincy, you working at a job that when I first started back in the construction industry years ago at NJ Pack, that was one of my projects to help close out. Fun fact.
Thanks for the beautiful building. Thanks for the beautiful building, Lisa.
Just closed it out, Wincy. I didn't have a hair on that dog. And Shoshana, my sister from the Caribbean, I too am from Trinidad. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, so we close. We're close. So that, okay. But you know, to our participants in today's discussion, you are in for a wonderful and exciting competition because I'm sure many of you that are joining us both have a business and a passion that you have merged together to create some wealth for you. And as we progress through today's conversation, what's going to be most important is, one, if you have any questions at all, please feel free to put them in the chat during our conversation. And as we wrap up today, we'll be sure to get time to address them. If not, we'll be sure to make sure that those questions get answered to you in some manner following today's event. But also just, you know, put your seatbelts on and get ready because this is going to be an exciting conversation about how to thrive in your art business while still caring and working towards your financial wellness, whatever that means for you. So with that, I would like to start, but at the very beginning, and that's something I've always heard. That's a good place to start because when you both, Wincy and Shoshana, thought about jumping into or transitioning or entering into this field of arts, you had some thoughts around, well, you know, here are some things that I need to consider. One, in order to establish my business, and two, maybe if you've been in it for a while, how could I grow it? So what I'd like to ask you is if you could walk me through, and I'll start with you, Shoshana, if you could walk me through, you know, some of your thought process that you had when you were building out your business, you know, like, did you have steps in place to set your business up? Or maybe when you thought about staffing, if you have that, what thought process did you go through?
Yeah, thank you. You know, while I was at Crozier here in Newark, I started to allocate some of my funds, my paycheck, every biweekly into a separate account. And using a budget, I, you know, put everything into a separate account so that I could start to finance and build and grow my art career. You know, so paying for my separate studio space, receipts, you know, supplies, everything went into a separate holding. And then of course I have rent. So I had, you know, so I kind of used my job as a way to navigate 2 spaces, and one public, one private, as I like to say. And then as for assets, you know, as an artist, the product is myself, right? It's the work I make, it's the work I produce. And so I am the asset. So I have to develop my image. I have to think about myself on a promotional level, even before social media, you know, that, I mean, even thinking about how that was done with tape and blue tape and, you know, and like sort of thinking about, you know, how you're perceived, and that perception is a value in the work that I make. And so getting into influential shows, doing studio visits with influential people, curators, and getting into public collections was something that helps with the assets, with creating this idea of value. And, you know, that being said, I'm actually in the process of exploring my studio practice as an LLC so that I can separate and protect my personal and private. For years, I've been doing separate. And now as a full-time artist, it's getting more serious where funds need to be, I need to grow and I need to protect myself. And so that's something that I've been working on. And then for staff, you know, it's not uncommon for artists to have staff. And, you know, you're thinking about how artists have had many assistants. Many cases, it's very common for an artist like myself just to have one assistant. And, you know, one assistant that can handle the day-to-day, buying the supplies, photographing the work, updating the website. Oh my gosh, that's a godsend. Point of contact with galleries, packing artwork up for shippers, you know, and that's something that can happen whether you want to find somebody at an hourly rate. In most cases, and what's really nice in the art world and with having colleges so close is that you can find an alternative with an intern that might want to work with you because they want to become an artist, or they are in business administration and they want to understand the art world. And so in many cases, interns can be here for credit. So that's really nice in terms of helping financially keep your overhead costs low, and you can have a nice turnover. I mean, there are lots of artists in the art world that have several assistants, have huge warehouses. You know, Andy Warhol was sort of known for his warehouse in the 1960s. And this practice of having apprentices goes back, you know, to the Renaissance. However, I'm not interested in having too many assistants working on my own work. But what's nice is the assistant allows me that time, and that time is money. So.
Thank you for that. I mean, that seems like you put a lot of thought into what you were going to. So Wincy, I'm going to throw the same question to you to talk us through what process you used when you were building out your forming up your company.
Well, I got to tell you how much I love this conversation, because everybody who's listening is going to get like the full ends of the spectrum, because I was not that methodical at all. So Shoshana had parents who kind of like, they were guiding her through. My father was not musical at all. My mother was musical, but she did not respect it as like a real like potential for income, because she had never made any income at it. So my parents were saying, you know, go to school, go to college, get a good education and get a good job at a company. So I actually worked at Prudential for like 4 years before I went full time in the music industry. And I backed into the music industry. I was like kind of throwing spaghetti against the wall. So I was raised in church, singing in church. And one day, one of the musicians said to me, "Hey, you can make money doing this," which it had never occurred to me. And so he said, "I'm going to get you a gig," which I didn't even know what that language meant, at a wedding. And I sang at the wedding. I made $25. The bride was crying. I was crying when she gave me the $25. I didn't know if she was crying because I sounded so bad or what, or it was too much money. I didn't know what to charge. So that led to like, I became the wedding singer. Then I became the funeral singer. And then I realized like, this could really be something. So for those of you who are like you might be starting out and you're thinking, wow, I am so far from hiring people to work for me. You're right where you're supposed to be. And if I had this information, if I had like Shoshana 30 years ago, I probably wouldn't have floundered around for so many years trying to figure out how to monetize my passion. So after, going on auditions and kind of spending it like fun money, because that's kind of what I thought it was. And when again, I'm a musician, I'm a singer. My voice is my instrument. So I walk with my collateral. So I didn't really have any overhead. I didn't have to buy equipment. I didn't need anything like that until I started looking at how to distinguish myself from every other singer. Like, how do I get the gigs that they don't even necessarily want me on? I mean, like, if everybody can sing, or if anybody can sing, then what's going to make them call me? So then I started figuring out some things, and this is like the pearl for you guys. What distinguishes your thing, whatever it is that you do, from everybody else's thing? So one of the things that I did was I bought a PA, a public address system, because for even for the jobs that they didn't necessarily pick me for, they were thinking, oh, we can't get this gig without a PA. Who has a PA? Oh, let's call Wincy. She has a PA. So then they put me on the gig, and now I'm working on that gig. What songs like does nobody else want to learn? So then I broadened my repertoire. So think about it in your own industry, in your own genre. So I learned jazz and gospel and R&B and hip hop and old tunes from the 20s and the 40s. So then I became the girl who knows all the songs. And then I became the girl who wouldn't mind driving to the gig. If it was an hour away or if it was 4 hours away, you could count on me to be at the gig. So eventually, I finally met my husband, who does the same thing Lisa does. And he kind of helped me configure, like, so I started making money. I was making bunch, like hand over fist. You heard the resume about how I was out there in the industry because I became quick. So I was a quick, like, session singer. So you could call me into the studio. I didn't read music, but I could hear it one time and I could sing it back to you. I could harmonize with myself. I could double. So I was working for all the rappers and all the Fine Young Cannibals, all like the big industry names. They knew me as the session singer. So whatever your game is going to be, get on top of it. So if they wanted to save money, they knew they had to pay me a lot, but I would be fast. So that made the difference. And that's how I began to navigate. And then after I sat with my husband, who does what Lisa does, financial services, then he started saying, you need a Roth IRA, because what you're noticing is that a lot of artists, I rebuke that starving artist thing. Like, that's not an option. So what you got to do is what Shoshana was saying, you got to put some money away. You got to take 10%, 20%, 30% of every dollar you make. You got to put it in a Roth. You got to save your money. Then you got to plan for because every business, you think about every business will have a low season, so find what your markets are. So then I began to market shows for Valentine's Day is coming up. That's my February market for couples. And Black History Month, I have a Black History show. March is Women's History Month. I have a Women's History show. So find your market, because people are just waiting for you to tell them what to buy and why. And so that's what I managed to figure out.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You said a couple pieces of nuggets there that were absolutely important, especially as business owners that have passion that's part of their plan, because you touched on asset. You talked about the assets you're growing and as far as the financial assets of it. But the one thing a lot of business owners fail and a lot of artists fail to realize is your biggest asset is your ability to earn an income. And as you said, Shoshana, if you're not there, what are you making? Same thing to you, Wincy. If you can't sing, what are you making? And that speaks to one of the many, one of the four, I should say, foundations of any financial life. It deals with having you got your cash management, where money's coming from. You've got your ability to protect your greatest asset, which is your ability to earn income. That's life insurance. That's disability insurance. And don't think you're going to rely on Social Security. Then there's the investment side. What you're going to do with the money that you just saved so that you start growing wealth, because nobody did this just to be, working from sale to sale. And then you also have, because you earned it and you made it, when you're ready to move on to what's next, I'm not going to call it retirement, but whatever's next, you want to make sure you're taking advantage of the most effective tax strategies that meet your needs. So yeah, those are absolutely important. And so we talked about, making, what we do with the money we make. I want to throw to you ladies, talk to me about some of the sources of funding. This is a huge topic for business owners starting up. Where do we get our funding from? Wincy, I'm going to start with you.
Okay, so a couple of places. One is you take a piece of every dollar you make and you put that away. But I have a jewel, like another pearl for you. I discovered, so in 1988, I incorporated my business. And there's a cost to doing business anyway. But I learned later, about maybe 10 years later, that an LLC is actually a lot less expensive to maintain than an incorporation. So I learned that actually from the SBDC, from the Small Business Development Center. And every one of us has one in our local area. They're inside the colleges, and they're made up of retired business owners who dedicate, like devote their time, and it's paid by your tax dollars. So I got a coach from the SBDC who helped me dissolve the ink and erect the LLC. And then they helped me learn about certifications like Minority Women Business Entrepreneur, and how a certain number of grants and money is set aside for that. When COVID hit, I went back to the SBDC and said, tell me what I need to know, like help me through this time. And so much money was available. I got an EDL, which is that economic injury disaster loan. I got an EDL loan and a grant. So they gave me, just dropped $10,000 in my bank account, because New Jersey wants to see businesses live. And so I would say to, because a lot of my artist friends said, oh, I'm not eligible for that. You're not eligible because you are not established as a business. And I remember I went on an audition and they said to me, we'll call you if we want, we'll call you if we need you. Kind of like that, because that's the industry. And I was walking out the door and looking back at that table, because it was my second audition. And I was thinking, I gotta figure out how to get behind that table. I can't wait for people to call me if they need me. Like, what if they don't call me? I need to eat. So one of the ways to do that is to establish yourself as a business so you are eligible for monies when they come down the pike. I just got the New Jersey stage grant just came through. So again, New Jersey wants to see businesses thrive and live, but you have to set yourself up as a business so that people recognize you in a certain way. And then you are eligible for business funding and business loans and business grants, things that you couldn't get if you just walked into a bank and said, I'm the girl from down the street who likes to sing.
Yeah, those are good nuggets, very good nuggets. Shoshana, did you have a similar experience or something different you'd like to add?
For me, it's been like, as an artist, it's been looking for funding, constantly looking for local and national grants. Teaching fellowships are wonderful. Paying webinars, artist talks, and maybe open calls for group shows and commercial galleries, and big galleries sometimes will even give you funding money towards new work to make. There's a little, that can be good and bad. Also selling my work on apps like Art Fair, so that way collectors see it directly. And that was before the pandemic. There's a lot of them popping up. Artsy is another one where you can have your work up and people can buy it from you directly. And there's always a little bit of a percentage. So that's a good way of like looking for funding. Just did the mural for Four Corners. That was a commissioned project that I applied for. It's really good to hone in and find out, how to write about. Grant writing is really important. There's a lot of colleges, a lot of communities have free grant writing practices and how-tos, which is really important. For me, also making merchandise with my imagery on it is a great way to reach out to people, different price points. So I'm thinking about, a work this size, not everyone can afford, but if I have a t-shirt or if it's a necklace or something that somebody who really loves my work wants to buy, I'll have different price points, much like a musician sells t-shirts at the concert. And, there's different, right now I'm in production. So many things are happening right now. I'm in production making t-shirts, bags, and jewelry. And I'm trying to create an online store and presence, hopefully before the holidays, but with COVID, some industries are not, it is taking longer to get certain products in plastics and things like that I want to use. But so that's also a way to extend, put money back into that account, fuel it, and also have different ways to spread out the funds. Definitely, as Wincy said, I always take about 10% out of any sale that I make and put it away, forget about it. Roth IRA is also really great, really great. And in 2014, as Jasmine had mentioned in the opening remarks, I received a Joan Mitchell Foundation Painters and Sculptors Grant in 2014. And the grant was very sizable. And basically I split up those funds, and I put the half of it into an existing fund along with the monies I was making at Crozier. And the other half I put away into an IRA. So it's there growing. And so, you know, the one thing about getting grants like the Joan Mitchell Foundation, which is a nominated one, is I got connected to a network. And that's really important as a working artist, a network of other artists who are finding and seeking and creating collectives, creating, you know, making one-of-a-kind prints at certain price points, doing that. And then also got connected with Creative Capital, which is a really wonderful nonprofit group that helps artists fund, learn how to manage and sort of expand their own art practices. And that's where I learned a lot about how to understand my finances, especially after receiving the grant. Another great resource is Project for Empty Space. It has tons of listings on the Newark Artist Database. And I have to say, I troll it quite often to find new resources. New Jersey has a lot of grants for different, you know, different areas of your art career, you know, what you do, music, folk art. The New Jersey Fellowship just came into play for drawing and painting, so I applied for that. So those are kinds of things that you do to, you know, seek it out. There, like Wincy said, there is money out there. And, you know, living in Newark and being here, this has been a wonderful time to apply for things. I feel like there is so much giving for artists, and the idea that this city wants art to thrive is so unique and so wonderful. So that to me is, you know, I think it's community, and also I think it's knowing what your budget is and what you want to spend and how you want to grow. Also seeing different business models, you know, seeing how artists, famous artists like and even local artists are selling their assets, right? This is an asset. Somebody wants one of my crooked teeth, and maybe they can't do a framed piece. So that there's ways, there's levels, thinking about getting into the community. Somebody's wearing this is promotion. So they're bringing your asset to someone else. I want one of those. So it's great.
Absolutely. So what I heard from both of you is that the ways are, you can either start with your own money, have a job, and you acquire those funds, like you were working Wincy at Prue. Yay, Prue. And you had some income while you were pursuing what you loved, your passion. And Shoshana, you took advantage of other people's money, which is another way. Well, we both did the same thing, but I'm just making an example here. So you have your money, you have other people's money. I'm a proponent for other people's money because it's the easiest look to get, and you don't have to worry about having too much skin in the game other than your passion and your talent. And so, yes, those are the two major ways of acquiring money. The other things that you added about that had to do with what do you do with that money once you get it, so that you're starting to build that wealth. And you both talked about using IRAs. But what if I told you that there are systems in place when you do have a legit business, like an LLC, or if you want to go so far and become a full-fledged C corporation, there's some tax issues there, we'll talk about that later. But if you did do the LLC, there are opportunities that are available to you because you are a business owner that gives you some better advantages that you would not ordinarily get doing a personal IRA. So this is where working with financial professionals becomes absolutely important, because you have the information. Now you need the wisdom of somebody, like you said, your husband, Wincy, that does this kind of work that can, you know, come out and help you. And that's the work that we do here at Prudential, you know, through Prudential Advisors. It's helping people go from where they are to whatever that financial wellness dream is. So this was really good. And in addition to that, Some of you who are listening, I see we have a question in the chat, which I'll be sure to get to in a minute. But one of the things I also wanted to point out, you heard both Shoshana and Wincy talk about how your localities, your cities, your municipalities, Newark has so much in place. Not just thriving, because we don't want you to thrive. We want you to survive and excel at what you do. There are programs at how many colleges are around the Central Business District in Newark? From Rutgers to NJIT, all those colleges, all your Essex County Community College, all of these locations have different programs. There is a program I know that, for businesses who are established and want to go to the next level. I'm not advertising it, but just to let you know, Rutgers has a QEd program, the Center for Urban Economic Entrepreneurship Development. QEd, look it up, it's at Rutgers. NJIT always has programs for small business owners. You never know who needs your work, so don't think just because you're not a tradesperson that your craft is not something that's important. You never know who's looking for that piece of artwork. Did a small stint working in my career at Newark Housing Authority, and I can tell you there are times that we're putting developments together, and one of the things we look for are local artists and their ability to have that kind of presence in those new facilities. So don't ignore those things. I know it's about, we're about 12:30. We're doing good on time. Got a few more questions for you guys. What about, let's talk about challenges. We're in I hope we're at the end of this pandemic challenge that we all faced. And I know for one, coming out of, COVID, a lot of people felt that it would have affected businesses like my own. I personally seem to be doing really well remotely with all of my clients, because guess what they don't have to do in the 10 minutes before I show up at their house? Clean. So we get to do this virtually, and all they have to worry about is look behind them. So talk to me about some of the challenges you guys face as business owners. Wincy, I'd like to start with you. How did you face them and what did you do?
Well, you know what? So God is amazing. I mentioned that I'm an NJPAC teaching artist, and I see that Aisha Marable is on this call from NJPAC. Shout out to Aisha and NJPAC from Community Engagement. One of the things that I do for NJPAC is I do what we call a Books on the Move program, where I go around to libraries and we do a storytelling, but it's not like I read a story. I kind of like embody a story and put the children in the story to get kids excited, like engaged in reading, because you understand that reading, the children are losing eye muscle strength because all they do is flip a screen. So just getting the children excited about the idea of reading a book. Well, when the pandemic hit, Aisha said to me, I have a project for you. Create a video of yourself doing the storytelling, and let's see if we can get people interested in it. And that opened up for me the whole idea of doing what I do virtually. I began doing videos and taught myself Final Cut. That's the thing about artists. There's a scripture in the Bible that says to one he gave 5 talents. The people who invested their talent and used it got more talent. And that's the thing about being an artist. Like, you don't even know all the stuff you can do until you have to do it, because necessity is the mother of invention. So when I did it, I really got involved in like, oh, I could do this, and how about I put some lower thirds in here, and how about I put some editing? So I learned to edit. And then I said, well, I wonder if I could take my shows and make Zoom shows of assembly programs. But then I saw other artists doing that. And you know what I said before, you always got to take your thing one step above, because then if it looks like everybody else's, then why should they call you? They'll just call somebody else. They'll just call the cheapest person doing it. So then I learned how to do these virtual backgrounds and take my artists and look like I'm putting them in the same room. God was blowing my own mind with this. I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. So it was challenging, yes, but it was challenging in the way, like Lisa said, like I was doing embarrassingly well in COVID. Like learning how to do this stuff, just rising to the challenge, staying up all night and creating something that I didn't even know was in me and would not have pursued it because there was no reason for it until COVID came. So God used COVID to be exceptionally good to me with the loans and the grants and opportunities like this, and then being able to offer what we offer, not even just now locally anymore, but I'm doing programs online where I'm in Colorado in the morning and Compton in the afternoon. Now, I couldn't do that before COVID.
Yeah, not without a big plane ticket and a lot of expense. So Shauna, I'm going to throw a little bit different question to you,
Sure.
but still in the same category about understanding challenges and things we face. A lot of the folks that are going to be listening in on this conversation are probably in a space where they're waiting to do too many things. They got too many things they want to do with their art and with their passion. And then they're also concerned about the resources that they have to do that. Was that something you felt had to address, or anything you dealt with at any point in time in your career?
In my career, I mean, I was going to just touch on the idea of fear of failure, and I take failure every day. And I mean, as an artist, walking into a space, making work, the blank canvas, the next morning going, what were you thinking? and taking those challenges. I mean, I think we navigate through the idea of, failure is another path, right? And so for me, there were times when I didn't have a studio in my past. I didn't have a space like this, right? I didn't have a job that I could afford another space. And what I'll say is, make the largest space in your house your studio. Make the space you don't use the garage, the attic, sleep in the smallest room. So that's like a way to, if I was thinking about that, not knowing where to get started question. And I was thinking about that a lot, like how I've told some of my students at MICA, when they're sort of in this pandemic at home, not in their lovely studio, at school, away from their family, trying to become themselves, I said, well, you have a head start. You're already out of school. Even though you're in school, you're already making work, as opposed to getting your degree and then looking for that apartment and trying to start it all over. For me, I think it's about, projects are about like looking at your budget. That's the most important thing. I have a budget. I have a monthly budget. And I have an annual budget for this studio. Rent, supplies. I mean, for me during COVID, there were some supplies I couldn't get in Europe. Some companies just closed. So having to really be flexible and navigate through, those, and also take on projects, work on things that are within my budget, and knowing that it's okay to say no to certain projects that you're thinking that's not going to give me enough funding. They're not paying me. I don't know if I want to pay for shipping. I mean, have some, certain, certain rules with business when you go into one, and there's be certain rules that I have as an artist with my assets that, I need a certain overhead before I can start something. And then the other thing is, like, I've never tried to compare myself with other successful artists. The grass is always greener, but the idea of like finding a role model or finding a mentor or finding an artist that's been very successful has been something that I have done. I've watched successful artists, I won't name them, but I've been like, gosh, how do they do that? How do they have two studios in two different, what kind of funding did they get? Because it's on their resume. So you can kind of look and see, I didn't think about the Guggenheim or the different grants that are out there that I could go to, or I could receive. And so those are things that I think that are positives. And things to think of when you're thinking about too many projects. Just think about the one that you can kind of really hone in on. What kind of supplies do you have? What kind of equipment do you have? I've got all of it. I can do this.
Yes, absolutely. That's absolutely good. A lot of good information and wonderful points, because the one thing we saw that this pandemic created was the two ends. You have the end where some people took the negative aspect of it and used it introspectively to increase their talents and skills in the way to deliver a service. Wincy, you spoke to that. And then you had those that looked at some of the challenges, the negative things that happened, access to supplies and things like that. You spoke to that, Shoshana, and gave people some insight on other things they can do. But let's be real. A lot of artists, one of the major cons, if you are an artist and your profession is standing up in front of an audience and singing, or going to live art shows to demonstrate your work, that just wasn't happening during the pandemic. And most of the income many artists get from their work, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, unless you legitimately paid into Social Security and unemployment, those weren't things that you could necessarily touch. So it kind of created some pros and some cons. And unemployment, we knew that when it comes to performing arts, unemployment is very, very high. And this pandemic didn't help that situation. So I'm glad that you two were able to share some of the pros and cons. But this gets back into some of the smart choices you can make as an independent business owner and entrepreneur. You have the passion that is your business, and then you need to be passionate about being a business owner. They're opposite ends of the spectrum. You need to learn how to let some things go so you can focus on your passion. And when you need help, when you need the wisdom of others, as Shoshana mentioned, if it's getting staff, if it's bringing on somebody else to do an aspect of your business, the administrative support, whatever, handling your CPAs, those professions. And don't ignore the fact that there are financial professionals that could take you from where you are to where you want to go, from your dream to delivery. That's what bringing all of that together as a business owner can benefit you. So we have about 15 minutes left in our conversation. What I'd like to do is just ask if there's anything that you might not have had a chance to say, to just take a minute to before I hop into a question that we have on our Q&A. Anything you'd like to close up with?
we both are jumping.
Okay,
Well, I wanted to say pros and cons. It's like the pandemic is a double-edged sword, especially for me, as last year, the biggest impact for me was losing my job at Crozier after 14 years. And that was the anchor for me. And so I've never not had a job in my artistic career. So kind of dividing my studio time and my 9-to-5 time, and so at times burning the candle at both ends, like every typical artist does, And so I think that I decided to take a leap, and I decided to dedicate myself to my practice, and funny because a lot of people say, oh, you're not, you don't have any work. And a friend of mine said, wait a minute, she's an artist. That's her job. That is her job. And so having to think about needing that anchor, in the past year I've had, in this year alone, I've had 5 group shows, solo show, sold work because of the sweat equity that I've done, because I'm here full time and I've not had to juggle all of that. And I think that, I've learned from other people during this time period how to navigate and find funding. And, the pros of the pandemic have been these Zooms, building a community beyond even the city, these panels, these talks, webinars, online shows. And I think that, I'm used to social distancing and isolation even before the pandemic. I mean, most artists are locked up in their cave. So I was okay with social distancing, but, it's actually been the opposite. I've been finding more of community. I've been finding new people in my community. And I think that I haven't slowed down production, which has been really great. The cons are not, the gallery world, like you had mentioned, their art fair. There were no art fairs. So a lot of that revenue, a lot of like seeking out new artists was kind of slowed down. So that was kind of a con. But anyway.
Well, thank you. What about you, Wincy?
Yeah, real quick. You know, there are two ways to share. Like I could tell you about something or I could offer it to you. And I know we talked about, Lisa, you touched on it, and Shoshana and I were talking about like saving money, and that's really mysterious to a lot of people. So I'm hoping Lisa will share with people how you can start a Unikay and how you can start a Roth, because I know as a musician, before I got involved in this work, and you know, I had mentioned earlier that I have some of those licenses, but I'm not practicing, and I'm not, you know, like offering that service. Lisa is the professional, and I feel like what's missing for many of our artists is access to that. Like artists don't know that there are companies that will service you. Now, if you walk into, you know, like a big lofty bank, they might say, well, what do? You don't have enough money. But whatever level you're on, you have access to financial planning. And that's what's mysterious for artists. They feel like, you know, if I don't make a ton of money, I really can't afford to save anything. So hearing this conversation is kind of ethereal. It's kind of like, well, how do I do it? So I would love it if Lisa could just, you know, tell you how you can do that. That's really what I want for everybody today. And don't miss the SBDC thing. Call your local college and say, you know what, I need counseling. It's free. And that's what we artists have to kind of help each other. Because a lot of artists even big famous artists are like dying broke because nobody's like, they didn't have a Lisa. Okay, so there it is. Okay.
Well, what a nice introduction. Thank you, Wincy. I will send the check in the mail. I'm just kidding. But you know, to your point, that's part of the mantra I have in my practice. I tell everybody I work with Henrys. You know who Henrys are? My high earners, not rich yet. You're doing your passion because you want to get there. Whatever rich means for you, it doesn't necessarily have to be money. It could just be rich in enthusiasm for what you do and the fact that you have the freedom to do it. It doesn't matter. I don't believe that I would be relatable to everybody, but I will tell you this. Prudential has a great and excellent wealth of individuals like myself that are available to talk. The most important thing you could do is reach out and talk. That's step number one. It doesn't cost you anything to pick up your cell phone, which I know most of you already have in your hand. Pick it up, make a phone call. There'll be some contact information towards the end, but what are you calling about? Real simple. I'm doing this. I want to get to there, and I need help with this. That's all it takes to start. Most important thing is starting. As Wincy mentioned before, when you become a business owner, there are also additional things that could be spoken to you about that you can learn about to help put systems in place to help you achieve that financial dream, or whatever that is for you, to make sure that if another pandemic comes down the line, or if another situation occurs, that you have access to funds that you've been putting aside along the way. And they're not all as difficult as you think. I like to use my little latte effect, that if I told you, if many of you, I'm going to pretend you all like to have a nice, what's it, wintertime, pumpkin spice latte. I ain't gonna tell you where to get it from, but we all like a pumpkin spice latte this time of the year. That drink costs you what? Let's say $5. And let's say Monday through Friday, you had to drink one of those. That's $25. What if I told you $25 a week times 4, that's $100 a month. What if I could show you something different to do with that $100 a month, or even just 50, or even just 25, because you really like the pumpkin spice latte? This is what talking to a financial professional can help you do, can help you better organize the things that you're doing. And with that, I'm just so, I had such a great time talking to my artists, talking to Shoshana, talking to you, Wincy. You guys brought a wealth of information, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. You know, it's been a very powerful conversation. Again, thank you to my amazing panel of women that joined me today. And I also like, you know, just to remind people, this is part of the Newark Arts Festival for 2021. Art is vital to our social, our civic, our economic, and the well-being of our communities in general. It allows us to examine what it means to be human, to voice, to express, and to bring people and ideas together. This is what we did here today. It is essential. Without art, a lot of things would perish. And with that, I would now like to pass it back to our moderator, Jasmine Wahi, for any final thoughts. And again, thank you all for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed all the other events that are featured in this year's Newark Arts Festival. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And none of us can hear it, but I'm sure everyone at home is clapping and cheering. Thank you, ladies, again. And yes, it is the Newark Arts Festival. There's a lot happening today. You can check it out at the Newark Arts Festival website. And then tomorrow for several facilities, including Project for Empty Space, we have open studios where you can come and see what artists have been working on since our last open studios, which was almost 2 years ago. And before I sign everyone off, I just wanted to share Lisa's information, which is lisa.lavelle@prudential.com. And if Shoshana and Wincy, if there are ways for folks to get in touch with you or to follow your work, if you'd like to share those quickly as well. Oh, I see that you're putting them in the chat. Perfect. And I suppose that is about it for today.
Oh, I do apologize. I forgot to answer a question.
Oh, oh yeah, please feel free. Answer away.
Oh my goodness. There was a question here from Pamela Booker. She asked, she says, this is such important information. Does having an employee ID number establish your business and eligibility for business grants until you can afford the LLC? I'm going to dial that back, and any one of you, Wincy or Shoshana, can chime in as well. Having applied for an employee ID number, you can get one as a sole proprietorship. You heard Wincy mention that when she became an LLC, that there were different benefits that were affordable. And the cost of doing business and becoming an LLC is not as prohibitive as you may think. So if it was up to me, I would suggest the formation of a separate LLC. There are some tax benefits associated. I'm not a tax advisor, so talk to yours about what that could mean for you and see which one would benefit you the best. Wincy, Shoshana, anything you'd like to add there?
No, that was it. That was perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm in the process, so that's, yeah. I'm
There
doing
you go.
LLC. That's what.
And then Neil asks if there was a way to access the recording after this webinar, and I'm going to let you answer that, Jasmine.
Yes, there is. It will be up on the NAD website, and Lauren Craig, who is also in the chat from Newark Arts. I think it may be shared through you as well, but you can definitely find it on the database website. And any last thoughts before I close out the meeting?
Oh, just one other thing. There is a program called Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts. And they're really amazing in terms of, like, for me to copyright my imagery. You can reach out to them. I've found them through Creative Capital, and they're amazing. There are lawyers that will just take the time for free. And if you have questions and you need to know how to do copyright, trademarks, things like that, they can help you. So definitely that's a resource I would definitely reach out and grab. Thanks.
Oh, sorry, on mute. Thank you so much. Thank you again to all three of you for being here and for sharing all of your wisdom, and hope to see you all tomorrow. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Thank you. Have a